The skyscraper's marble floors gleamed beneath the dim glow of the late-night lights, their reflection catching in every step the cleaning lady took. Her cart squeaked as she pushed it down the hushed hallway, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the city far below. The billionaire's office, top floor, corner suite, always came last. It was her ritual: save the grandest room for the quietest hour. Tonight was no different, or so she thought. She pushed open the heavy mahogany door and inhaled the subtle mix of leather, cedarwood polish, and something sharper, power, perhaps, that lingered in the air even when the man himself wasn't present. The room stretched out like a museum, walls lined with modern art, shelves stacked with rare books. The desk at the center was massive, sleek, and spotless, except for the inevitable scattering of files, pens, and a few personal items she never dared touch. She began her work with practiced ease, moving around the edges, straightening chairs, and wiping down surfaces. But when her hand slid across the cool glass of the billionaire's desk, her body locked in place. Her eyes narrowed, catching on something that didn't belong. Nestled between a gold fountain pen and a silver letter opener was a small frame, simple compared to the lavish surroundings. Her breath hitched. It was her. A photograph of a little girl, no more than 8 years old, grinning wide as she clutched the rope of a makeshift swing. The dust of her childhood village seemed to seep through the image itself, the cracked wall in the background, the faded dress she remembered tugging at her knees, the sunlight that painted her skin golden. She hadn't seen that photograph in decades. In fact, she thought it had been lost forever, swallowed in the fire that tore through her family's home when she was still young. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She reached out, trembling, and touched the edge of the frame as though it might vanish if she blinked. A rush of memories crashed over her. The smell of earth after rain, her mother's laugh, the taste of dry bread she'd shared with the neighbor boy who often went hungry. That boy, she gasped, pulling her hand back. No one should have this. No one could have this. Not unless. The realization sent a chill through her. The billionaire, this untouchable man whose name was spoken with awe and envy, how could he possibly possess something so intimate from her past? Her knees wobbled, and she sank into the leather chair across the desk, forgetting for a moment that she wasn't supposed to sit, wasn't supposed to even breathe too loudly in this office. Her heart beat faster, questions spiraling with no answers. Was this a mistake, a coincidence, or was it something darker? Was someone watching her, digging into her history, her secrets? The silence pressed heavy around her. She tore her eyes from the photograph, forcing herself to stand. She should leave it, pretend she never saw it, and finish her job. Yet her gaze kept snapping back to that smiling little girl, the girl she once was, staring out from the billionaire's desk as if waiting to be recognized. The door creaked open behind her, a low sound that sliced through the stillness like a blade. She froze, her hand still lingering near the photograph, heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would give her away. Slowly, almost unwillingly, she turned her head. He was there, the billionaire himself, tall, composed, framed by the doorway with the city lights spilling in from the hall behind him. His suit jacket hung open, his tie loosened as though the day had drained him, but his presence carried the weight of command nonetheless. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, swept across the room before settling on her. And then, lower, on the photograph, his expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. A tightening of the jaw. A flicker of something like recognition, quickly masked by cool authority. "You're not supposed to touch what's on the desk," he said, his voice low, calm, but edged like glass. Her throat tightened, words tangled before they even formed. I wasn't. I was just cleaning, sir." The excuse sounded weak even to her own ears. He stepped further into the room, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. The air seemed to grow heavier with each step he took, his gaze never leaving her face. She wanted to shrink away, to explain herself, but his eyes were pinning her in place. Finally, he moved closer to the desk, glancing at the frame. His hand brushed against it, lingering for a heartbeat as though he too felt the weight of it. "Interesting," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Then, looking directly at her, he asked, "Where did you last see this picture?" The question landed like a thunderclap. She blinked at him, her lips parting in disbelief. He wasn't accusing her of stealing it, wasn't demanding an explanation of why she'd been staring. No, he was asking something far deeper, something that suggested this photo meant as much to him as it did to her. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice breaking. That's me. That picture, it was mine. From when I was a child. It shouldn't be here, it can't be." His gaze sharpened, as though he'd been waiting for her to admit it. So it is you, he said quietly, almost to himself. His eyes softened for the briefest moment before his mask of control slipped back into place. I thought so. Her knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself, her mind spinning. How could this man, who lived in a world so far from hers, know anything about her childhood? How do you have it? She demanded, her voice trembling with both fear and desperation. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he circled the desk, coming to stand across from her. The lamp's golden light threw shadows across his face, carving his features into something both intimidating and strangely vulnerable. It doesn't matter how I got it, he said softly. What matters is why I kept it. Her breath caught. She didn't know whether to run from the room or lean in closer. For the first time, she felt that the mystery of her past was tied irrevocably to this man's powerful present. Her chest rose and fell too quickly, the silence stretching between them like a taut rope ready to snap. She couldn't tear her gaze from his, couldn't look away from the photo that glimmered faintly on the desk between them. Her whole body trembled with a single question: why did he keep it? Her lips quivered as she forced the words out. Please, tell me, how do you even know about that picture? How do you know me? The billionaire leaned back slightly, studying her as though weighing how much truth she could handle. His voice, when it came, was softer than she expected, stripped of the icy detachment he usually carried in every business interview, every headline she had read about him. Because I was there. Her brows knitted. There. He nodded, his gaze drifting past her, as though the walls of polished glass and marble had melted away and been replaced by something humbler, something long forgotten. The village. The cracked earth. The rusted swings. You lived 2 houses down from me. You might not remember me, I was just another hungry boy with nothing to his name. But I remember you. Her mouth went dry. She searched his face, desperate to find a lie, but there was none. Only a strange tenderness lingered in his tone, almost painful in its clarity. You always had food, he continued, his jaw tightening, not much, but more than me. And every day, when you saw me pretending not to stare at your bread, you tore it in half and gave it to me. You never asked my name. You never asked for anything in return. You just gave. Her hands clutched at her apron, the fabric twisting between her fingers. The memories hit her like a storm. Muddy lanes, her mother's voice warning her not to wander, the thin boy who lingered at the fence, eyes too large for his gaunt face. She had given him her food, laughed when he smiled, then watched him disappear one day without goodbye. Her voice cracked. That boy, that was you. His eyes, dark and sharp in the present, seemed to glimmer with something fragile beneath. Yes, my name wasn't worth much back then. No one thought I'd survive, let alone become this. He gestured faintly to the empire surrounding him. But I carried that picture everywhere. Your mother gave it to me the day I left. She pressed it into my hand and told me, don't forget the girl who shares her bread. Remember her kindness, and maybe you'll build a kinder life. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed her hand to her mouth, her heart aching at the thought of her mother, at the thought of this boy-turned-man who had held onto her face all these years. I thought everything from my childhood was gone. Lost in the fire. He shook his head. Not everything. Not you. I searched for you, but you vanished. For years, I wondered if you were even alive. And then, his gaze softened, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Fate brought you here, into my office, into my life again. The room felt smaller now, intimate despite the towering windows. She gripped the edge of the desk, fighting the swell of emotions threatening to drown her. This wasn't just coincidence, it was history looping back, tying them together with threads neither had known still existed. Her hands trembled as she lowered herself into the chair across from him, her chest tight with the flood of memories. She had scrubbed these floors night after night, thinking she was invisible in a world that wasn't hers, and yet here he was, this man who had crossed oceans of time and wealth, claiming her as part of his story. The photograph lay between them, silent proof that fate had never truly let go. He studied her, his expression no longer the mask of a billionaire but something gentler, more human. You don't know, he said slowly, what that picture meant to me. Every deal I made, every risk I took, I carried it in my pocket. When they told me I was nothing, when they laughed at me, I looked at that smile. You, the girl who gave without asking. You reminded me that the world could be kinder than it seemed. Her eyes stung with unshed tears. She pressed her palms against her lap, grounding herself, because everything felt like a dream too fragile to last. But I'm just a cleaner, she whispered. I don't belong here, not in your world. I barely make enough to feed my children. The words slipped out before she could stop them, the weight of her hidden struggles suddenly too heavy to keep back. He leaned forward, his gaze steady, unshaken. Don't ever say you don't belong. You're the reason I survived long enough to build this world. His hand hovered over the photograph, then turned palm up, open, waiting for her to take it if she dared. And I won't let you disappear from it again. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't pity wrapped in rich man's promises. Why now? She asked, her voice cracking. Why tell me all of this? Because life doesn't hand us many second chances, he said firmly. And I won't waste mine. He paused, as though weighing the depth of what he was about to say. Let me help you, not as charity, not as repayment. As a friend, as someone who owes you more than he can ever put into words. The room went still, only the hum of the city far below filling the silence. She looked down at the photograph, her younger self grinning back, untouched by time or hardship. That little girl had never dreamed of skyscrapers or billionaires. She had only dreamed of being kind, and now, years later, that kindness had circled back in the most impossible way. Slowly, hesitantly, she placed her hand in his. His fingers curled around hers, warm and steady, grounding her trembling resolve. It wasn't just a gesture of thanks, it was a promise. Tears slipped free at last, and she didn't bother to wipe them away. I don't know what the future holds, she whispered, but maybe fate does. He gave a small, almost boyish smile, one that softened the sharp edges of his powerful presence. Then let's see where fate takes us. Together. The city lights flared against the windows, as though the world itself was watching a story long overdue finally begin again.